Hi, I'm Jenny, and I'm going to be doing my presentation on why vaccines should not be mandatory for entering schools. And so I first off want to start by saying that I am not arguing that vaccines are bad in any way. It's just that they should not be a mandatory enforced thing by the government. So the first mandatory vaccine came out a long time ago in 1853 in Britain, and since then the movement has grown rapidly, and it's being accepted in a lot of new places as vaccines are growing as well, with scientific discoveries and things like that. But my three main points are that vaccines or mandatory vaccines are an infringement of the First Amendment rights we have with the freedom of religion. It ignores past centuries of failed vaccines that have been very bad in the past and have hurt a lot of people, and it discriminates against those who medically cannot take vaccines. So my first part is with the religion. Something we value so much in the U.S. as a free nation is our ability to have whatever religion we want and to practice whatever spiritual practices we choose to as humans in this free nation. And so a big thing about the religious freedoms is that about 5 million people just in the U.S. alone have religions that do not allow them to take vaccines, as it is detrimental to their practices, or it infringes on their prayers or whatnot, whatever it may be. It's very big and important for them to not take vaccines. And so because of the push, it's very, very disrespectful for the government to completely ignore the freedoms that they've given them in the first place and taking them away and saying that you can practice whatever religion we want, except under our constraints, and you can't do this and you can't do that. And so there's a lot of people in the U.S. that are not able to practice the religion and the freedom that they were promised in the beginning, especially by the Constitution. And it's just an infringement of their rights as humans to put something in their body that is completely not what they believe. And aside from religious beliefs, there's been past injections of vaccines that have been very, very bad and very detrimental to a lot of people's health, or just not beneficial whatsoever. So all throughout history, you can see a lot of different ones. In 1955, there was a polio vaccine that came out, and let's see, it says more than 200 children got the polio vaccine because of this virus that contained this live polio. It contained the live polio virus, and so it wasn't checked very well, and so they gave it out, and it got more than 200,000 children with the disease, and the government had to completely abandon the program. 40,000 kids got polio. A lot of them were left with paralysis, and about 10 of them died, and this was because this was a forced vaccine that they took, and it wasn't ready to be sent out. And so people literally died from this vaccine that they thought was going to be good. And so that was back in past, but even a very recent one in March 28th of this year, the FDA granted EUA to the drugs, which is just like saying that they can set it out as an emergency. But then later tests showed that it was not effective whatsoever, but in fact it could actually cause serious heart problems. And so it didn't help at all, but yet it actually caused more damage than it would have if you just left it alone. And so these were also just mandatory vaccines that the government made sure to press on people. And there's a lot of other examples too. I can't include them all in here. But just of past vaccines that have had a really bad impact, and so it just kind of people being forced to take vaccines that have been oftentimes in the past proven to be bad. There's a lot of good ones, but yeah, but it should never be forced, especially if there's such a track record with how bad they can be. People should always be able to make that decision for themselves if it could potentially be detrimental to their health. Aside from that, there's a lot of people, my third argument is that there's a lot of people with health problems that can't, and there are a lot of medical exceptions for people and vaccines. However, there's a lot of people that aren't accepted, and there's the CDC offers a very extensive list of all of the things that medical problems that could go on with vaccines. They list over 25 vaccines that you need to check super heavily if you have any of these any of the certain health problems, because it's such a the vaccines have a lot of materials that are very sensitive, and it could hurt a lot of people. And so there's a lot of people in the U.S. that have medical restrictions that they have to either be super like checking themselves to make sure they're not infected with anything, or they have to just go through an extensive process to be able to get those waived for them. But there should never be a mandatory vaccine, especially for those that would it would hurt them to take the vaccines, and so there should be just better waiving processes too. And there's just so many things that the CDC has on their website that show that there's a lot of vaccines that could be very detrimental to your health, especially for those already in places that are risky. So just my conclusion is that there's a lot of religious reasons to pardon vaccines. There's a lot of reasons for people to be skeptical because of things that have happened in the past. And there's a lot of people that are just unable to take it because of medical reasons. And so you can't pardon one without pardoning the other, because they're all underlying your rights as humans. And one can argue that medical is a little bit more necessary, or that religion doesn't really take place in this part. But they all are underlying our freedoms as citizens of the United States. And so for the government to have mandatory vaccines on any of us is just an infringement of our rights overall. But yeah, that's about it. People have the right to choose what they want in their own body, and it's just very important for us to keep our rights as citizens. But thank you.